Hello, my name is Jack. Welcome back to my vault. On July 20th, 1969, a man stood in a control room in Houston. He watched two astronauts land on the moon. He wept. The world called him a hero. He received the Presidential Medal of Science. He became the face of American science. But there was something in his file that the U.S. government had removed. His SS officer rank, his membership in the Nazi Party, his visits to a factory where prisoners were hanged from cranes, 57 in a single day. His name was Wernher von Braun, and he was not the only one. This Operation Paperclip, and the vault is now open. Spring 1945. Germany is collapsing. Allied forces are advancing from the west. Soviet forces from the east. Somewhere in the Harz Mountain factory is running at full speed, underground. In tunnels carved by hand, 60,000 prisoners dug those tunnels with their bare hands. No mining tools. The SS feared an uprising. The factory was called Mittelwerk. It was building V-2 rockets. The rockets that were destroying London. The rockets that killed 9,000 people across Europe. But more people died building the rockets than died from them. 20,000 prisoners were worked to death in those tunnels. Starved. Beaten. Hanged. 30 to 57 executions in a single day. Hung from electrically controlled cranes. A piece of wood placed in their mouths so they could not scream. The man responsible for production at Mittelwerk was Arthur Rudolph. The man who visited the factory and knew what was happening was Wernher von Braun. May 2nd, 1945. Bavaria, Germany. Wernher von Braun, SS officer, rocket scientist, surrenders to American forces. His arm is in a cast from a recent car accident. He has a choice to make. He has already made it. He and his team had spent weeks deciding. Surrender to the Americans or the Soviets. They chose America. Von Braun had something to offer. The V-2 rocket designs. The engineering team. The knowledge. Before the Soviets arrived at Nordhausen, U.S. forces removed 14 tons of V-2 components, shipped them to America. The war crimes investigators were right behind them. They found the factory. They saw the bodies. They opened the files. 115 scientists, already living at Fort Bliss, Texas, were named in the resulting war crimes trial. The Army classified the trial records immediately. They remained secret for 40 years. The program had a rule. President Truman had been explicit. No Nazi Party members. No active Nazi supporters. None. So the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency did something simple. They rewrote the files. Security dossiers were systematically altered. Nazi Party membership was described as nominal. SS ranks disappeared from records entirely. References to human experimentation and slave labor were removed. In von Braun's case, his rank of SS Sturmbannführer Major vanished from his American file. Only the original German documents preserved the truth. Those documents were classified. The 1947 Dora Nordhausen war crimes trial concluded with convictions. Von Braun was not present. The Army said it was too much of a security risk to bring him. He was already at Fort Bliss, working on American rockets. 1,600 German and Austrian scientists and engineers eventually came to America. They worked on missiles, biological weapons, chemical weapons, aerospace technology. They built the programs that would define the Cold War. And in 1958, Wernher von Braun appeared on the cover of Time magazine, American Hero. In 1955, he appeared on Walt Disney Television, children's programming, space exploration, the future. The man who had been photographed standing next to Heinrich Himmler, the man whose factory had hanged prisoners from cranes while he visited, was now explaining the cosmos to American children. His colleague, Arthur Rudolph, became the chief designer of the Saturn V rocket, the rocket that took Neil Armstrong to the moon. Rudolph had personally selected prisoners from Buchenwald concentration camp to work on V-2 production. He had personally ordered executions at the factory. In 1984, when investigators finally caught up with him, he agreed to leave the United States and surrender his citizenship to avoid prosecution. He was never charged. He died in Germany in 1996. In 1977, Wernher von Braun died of cancer. President Jimmy Carter awarded him the Presidential Medal of Science, the United States' highest civilian honor. At the time of the award, his connection to the slave labor camps was still classified. The trial records from 1947 were still sealed. They would not be released for another decade. The men who ran the concentration camp factory that built his rockets were never sentenced. The man who designed the rocket that took humans to the moon had visited that factory. In a 1969 deposition, he acknowledged seeing mistreated prisoners. He said he felt powerless to intervene. He was the technical director of the entire V2 program. Arthur Rudolph, who designed the Saturn V, said in 1984, "I read Mein Kampf and agreed with lots of things in it. Hitler's first 6 years, until the war started, were really marvelous." He was speaking to the investigators who were about to remove him from the country. No charges. 1 citizenship surrendered. That was the full accounting. The V2 rocket killed approximately 9,000 people across England, Belgium, and France. The Mittelwerk factory that built the V2 killed approximately 20,000 people. More people died building the weapon than died from it. Of the 1,600 scientists brought to America, 1 was prosecuted. 1 was convicted. He was acquitted on appeal. The CIA released 267 pages of Operation Paperclip files. The FBI released 32 pages. The 1947 war crimes trial records were classified for 40 years. The photographs of von Braun with his SS uniform exist. The photograph of him standing next to Himmler exists. The photograph of him surrendering with his arm in a cast, smiling, exists. And the photographs from inside Mittelwerk, taken by American soldiers when they arrived in 1945, also exist. They are in the National Archives. The men in those photographs and the man in the NASA control room in 1969 were the same people. And America knew. The vault for Operation Paperclip is now locked. But the next secret is already waiting. Subscribe to enter the vault. My name is Jack. Keep your eyes open.